Democrats just retook control of the House of Representatives after 8 years, and the rest of us are waiting to see what they will do with their new political power. We know the Democrats despise the president. They've mentioned that. But what are they for? What's their organizing principle? If you imagine something simple and straightforward like lower prescription drug prices or more transgender Marines, think again. Their mission is bigger than that. In fact, it's more metaphysical than it is political. The Democrats are planning nothing less than the moral revival of this country. Listen to their leaders.
That invisible moral fabric is being shredded. I mean, literally being shredded.
I knew that the good people of Texas would rise up and find their moral compass.
Ridiculous policy that has offended the morality of the American people.
If my Republican colleagues have any sense of morality, they will refuse to go forward on Friday.
Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut. That's right. The party of sex-selective abortion is now lecturing you about morality. And frankly, you're coming up a little short in that department. You don't measure up to the high moral standards of, say, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand of New York, a longtime friend and defender of Bill Clinton, Harvey Weinstein, and Anthony Weiner. Gillibrand has recently been reborn as a fire-breathing fundamentalist preacher. Here's a selection from a few of her sermons over just the past week.
This country was founded on some basic moral principles, that we have a moral compass as a nation. Our morality as a country is literally on a knife's edge.
For me, it's really a moral question. For me, it's very much a moral question. I've been called to fight as hard as I possibly can to restore that moral integrity, that moral decency.
For me, it's a moral question. Keep in mind the hand gesture. Keep in mind also that Senator Gillibrand isn't just fighting for moral integrity and moral decency. She says she has been called to fight for these things. You know who called her, don't you? It wasn't her friend Anthony Weiner from the prison payphone. Nope. It was God himself. He calls Senator Gillibrand directly. He's got her cell. That's how close they are. Remember when Democrats used to say they worried about a theocracy? Who knew they'd try to start their own? Well, after 8 years, the minority Democrats are, as we said, back in control of the House. They may soon have a new leader of the House, the Speaker. A growing number of Democrats publicly voicing opposition to electing Nancy Pelosi to that job for another time.
One of the things that I talked about frequently on the campaign trail was the need to have new voices in Congress, the need to turn a new page.
We answer that call for new leadership by reinstalling the same status quo establishment leadership that we've had in this party since 2006, then we're letting down the American people.
I think once we show that the leader can't get to 218, you're going to see other people throw their hat in the ring, too.
Now, there are a lot of ways Pelosi could respond to that. The most obvious is by saying, look, we just won 39 seats in the House. Possibly we're going to get to 40. I did that. She could say that. Instead, she's crying sexism.
You'd have to ask those people what their motivation is. I think of the 17, it's mostly like 14 men who are on that letter. If, in fact, there is any misogyny involved in it, it's their problem, not mine.
Men. Toxic masculinity in the Democratic Party. Richard Goodstein, a living expert on this. No, just kidding. But he is an attorney and former advisor to both Bill and Hillary Clinton, joins us tonight. I didn't know, Richard, there was that much sexism in the Democratic Party. Nancy Pelosi says there is. What are you guys going to do about it?
Yeah, I was sorry to see Nancy Pelosi attribute these rebels to misogyny and sexism. I actually think she knows that's not what it is, that when Conor Lamb was running for election initially in that district in Pennsylvania that went for Trump by 20, and all these ads were being run saying he was just going to be a puppet of Nancy Pelosi's, guess what? He said he wasn't going to vote for her if he got elected to be Speaker. And you know what? He's not. It's not because she's a woman. It's because he made a commitment to his constituents, because he basically thought that's what he needed to do to, A, get elected, and B, what he thought was right, that the Democrats needed to turn the page.
Oh, so he just wants the most qualified candidate, irrespective of her sex. I can't let you off the hook that fast, Richard. These are the rules that you guys wrote, and the rules are as follows. The most important thing about you is how you're born. Your sex, your race, your sexual preference, your innate qualities, your DNA. That's what defines you. It's called identity, Richard. I don't know if you knew that. In the intersectional world that you guys made, you can't just say, oh, we found a better candidate. You're blowing off a woman 14 men are doing that. Is there an investigation into institutional sexism in the Democratic Party? I'm dead serious. Why wouldn't there be?
Yeah. Here's what's worse. The problem for the Democrats, and I'm serious about this, has nothing to do with identity. It's with seniority. And they, I think, respect the fact that when Newt Gingrich came in, that the Republicans did something different. They basically said, we're going to put the sort of younger, vital, able, competent people in our leadership position at committee chairs. And Paul Ryan's a young guy. And I think that's something that, frankly, a lot of Democrats wish Democrats could figure out a way to embrace. It has nothing to do with Nancy Pelosi's gender or Congressman Clyburn's race. It has to do with the fact that, yes.
But everything outside the Democratic Party's leadership structure, according to Democrats, has to do with race and gender. Everything. I mean, every time I flip on the tube, there's some moron tugging his chin and saying, I don't see enough people of whatever in this picture. I mean, that is the most basic Democratic talking point. But we're not supposed to apply it to the Democratic leadership because why?
Well, again, I think the Democratic talking points are about health care, about making sure that tax cuts go to working people, about gun background checks, about infrastructure. That's what Democrats are united around.
Can they stop lecturing the rest of us about racism and sexism, since clearly they don't hold themselves to the same standard? That's all I'm asking for. By the way, I hope the Democrats talk about health care. I think it's an important topic. I think we'd all benefit from that. Can they lay off the race and gender stuff a little bit, though, since they're obviously not playing by those rules?
Again, Republicans put Nancy Pelosi on the ballot, all these ads they ran against her. Donald Trump said himself he was on the ballot. And as you just said, Democrats picked up 39 seats, having nothing to do with race or gender, having to do with sort of a belief that, A, they needed an agenda that the Democrats supported, and B, frankly, to put a check on Donald Trump.
Wait, you just lied over it. Nothing to do with race or gender. Really? I mean, or gender, how do we know that? So here's what I know. Here are the stark facts of the case. Donald Trump is for Nancy Pelosi as Speaker, but Seth Moulton is not. Trump is comfortable with a strong woman in power. Seth Moulton clearly isn't. Yeah. Seth Moulton looks like a sexist to me by this measure, and Donald Trump seems very enlightened. I mean, that's what I say. Why do you see something different?
You're assigning weight to what Donald Trump says. I think most Democrats, and frankly, most people in the country anymore, don't. With all due respect, they just don't assign weight to what he says.
Wait, he says he's
so
for
many times
Pelosi.
he says
how
things
about this?
That aren't true.
I'm for Pelosi. Look, I'm just using the rules that you guys made up and enforce with Germanic efficiency on the rest of us. That's all I'm doing. And how does it feel? It feels bad because it's unfair and stupid, isn't it? Can you just admit that? It's unfair and stupid, and the rest of us have to live like this in fear. And maybe you guys should live that way just for a day to see what it feels like. Do you see what I mean?
Well, again, you're ascribing things that I think Democrats and the public generally, they wouldn't have voted in the Democrats to run the House if they accepted what your proposition, Tucker.
I guess. I don't know why they did. Richard Goodstein, great to see you. Thank you. I don't think
pleasure.
you're a sexist. I was just kidding.
Thank you.